Hello again, welcome to another edition of Croplife Retail Week. Paul Schrimpf here with Sfiligoj. I from my bunker, and you, sir, are still in your fabulous room with the fabulous curtains, I see.
Yes, the fabulous curtains. Yes, those never change. Thank you very much. My son likes blue, so it's his favorite. So I leave them there. So
I see. All right, well, I'm thinking about bunkerizing this a little bit more. Maybe getting some of my post World War II stuff up on the walls to really give people a feel that this is really serious. We're really hunkered down and working hard to serve the market despite all the circumstances that we're up against, right?
yeah, that's good. And by the way, you wearing a dark shirt, I'm looking over your what would be right shoulder, and there seems to be a black dot on the wall. I'm assuming maybe it's a nail, or you can turn around and look.
Could be.
No, other shoulder. Sorry.
Shoulder.
No.
I think it's an illusion.
It's a what?
I think it's an illusion. I think I did a really bad job of putting this.
No. This is on the wood, not on the drywall.
Wood?
On the wood. That right there. Yes.
Called a screw.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, it could be a screw. The way like I said, the fact you're wearing a dark shirt and you're so close to it, it is really kind of screaming out. Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, we should get on with it. So.
Yes. Yeah. Now that we've talked about the background, so your background is very lively. I even noticed that in one of our company calls this morning, someone was commenting on your background and how it has improved significantly over the course of the last 2 months.
Yeah, I'm trying not to slum. I mean, now that we're probably going to be here for, maybe through part of the first quarter at least of next year, I want to make sure that somewhat presentable. But anyway, I had been having a lot of conversations. We're working on the November issue right now, and there's so much going on. I know you're going to talk about your Croplife 100 stuff that you're gathering for December, as well as some other things, but. Talking about technology, and was talking to actually a farmer who was picking up technology that's going to allow the grain cart, to follow next to his combine. He's talking about the difficulty of finding labor to drive these things, and it's interesting, and he was saying he's got an elderly uncle and a dad, and then his son is only 14. He doesn't really trust him because you're basically like going Blue Angels. You're putting that cart right next to the combine. He says, you have one rack, and you're in big trouble. And you get into drivers that use, they got YouTube going in the cab, and they got all this other stuff going. I mean, you really have to be paying attention. You have to be holding on. And the alternative of having something that someone's sitting in there, but it's assisted, so it's basically keeping it at a certain distance from the machine that's doing the harvesting, is really it's becoming a bigger thing. And so you think about Raven and Ag Leader and others that are working on these technologies that lock the grain cart in and allow it to drive itself. That's a pretty substantial practical use of the technology. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know I've seen more and more too about artificial intelligence coming into agriculture, and I think I don't know if it was specifically about grain carts, but somewhere in one of those articles I read, they did mention about the fact that being that would be the vehicle would be able to drive itself without distractions from that might occur with a in-person driver. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that progresses here over the next year or so, in particular if COVID-19 continues. So.
Yeah. He was also mentioning he thought full autonomy still has a lot of cultural challenges within the farm community. Farmers are still really like, and they're never gonna do that on my farm, that kind of full on no driver approach. This is certainly a good step toward it, and that this works. I think progressive farmers are gonna find a way to use this technology, but you wonder in the rank and file if there's still going to be some pushback, but that's yet to be seen.
Sounds like a survey monkey waiting to happen, Paul. Get on it.
Yeah, maybe. I think retailers should do it. I don't know. I think if they could, but that's something we could prove through a survey. So what have you got going?
What do I got going? Well, again, speaking of COVID-19, I know this is something we've been talking about a little bit over the last few videos, but I did between a couple of news stories I ran across and a little bit of information from our sister publication, Agribusiness Global, which is this past week, has held their virtual trade summit meeting, a couple of speakers at that event. It looks like farm aid, because of the U.S.-China trade dispute and COVID-19 in 2020, could hit $50 billion. And Paul, that would be a record 36% of total farm income for the calendar year if it does happen that way. And most people seem to think that those numbers are pretty well locked in at this point. So, and again, Paul, that's the reality we're in right now. Whether this continues into 2021 is an open question, however.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. I think there's going to be pieces to be picked up in 2021 by whoever is there, if it's the continuation or if it's new. There's going to be a lot of pressure to back off of spending. So, we'll see. I don't know. But it's after everything that's been put into the market, it's going to be it's going to be a tall order to find more money for continued support. We'll see.
Yeah, well, but in some cases, though, it sounds like the U.S. farmers will actually be getting, certain farmers, be getting more money coming their way between now and the end of the year. Another thing we've been following, of course, is the fact that even though the U.S. and China are disputing trade, China has been on a buying spree when it comes to U.S. corn and soybean. And we found out this week that for the month of September, which is almost over now, China's already bought 2.7 million tons of U.S. soybeans. So the trade flow between the U.S. crops and China is continuing. And I know that's led to speculation that we may in 2021 see more soybean going into the ground. Less corn, more soybean because of this, maybe more China purchases happening going into the new year. And was interesting at the trade summit, which I alluded to earlier, one of the speakers mentioned that for corn growers, the years between 2015 and 2020, it actually cost them more to plant corn than they got for selling the corn into the marketplace. So again, that may be more reason why we'll see more soybean acres coming up here in 2021.
Yep. Yeah, interesting times. So what else is going on?
Well, the only thing this I guess was a win, if you will. I guess there has been some back and forth regarding the safety of the triazine herbicides. One of the most popular, of course, being atrazine. Environmental groups claim that those products cause harm to waterways and amphibians and other wildlife that depend on water and swamps. Well, but I guess the EPA has ruled that in their estimation that triazines are perfectly safe. And obviously that ruling was met by a lot of positive feedback from the industry and trade associations that support agriculture. Not so much from the environmental groups who promise to continue fighting, of course, to get triazines pulled off the market. So, yeah,
and I'll tell you, it's great to hear from EPA, but it'd be even better if we really had some sense of trust in our agencies that existed in the public. It makes it really, really hard for agriculture, and it's great that we get that kind of ruling, but hopefully, in the future, we'll support science, especially the career scientists and so forth. I know it's something Croplife America has been very adamant about trying to instill in everyone, is that we need to really stand behind. Everyone needs to stand behind our career scientists at these agencies and respect their opinions, because they're not political and they're delivering opinions. And when they're favorable to us, we certainly want to be able to share those and feel confident about sharing them, that they're delivered in a scientific way.
No, thanks for that segue, Paul. Actually, I was going to ask you, I know that usually, whereas we're filming this kind of the end of September, that's usually about the time the folks from Croplife America get together for their annual meeting. I know that, like everyone else, they've gone virtual here in 2020, but is that indeed taking place the last week of September, and are you going to be attending?
That's true. I'll be sitting in on sessions next week, trying to block out my schedule to instill in my own discipline for events. It's very hard when you're not there to say you're going to be there and to actually be there. You know, when you travel, you're supposed to be there and travel. So when you're not traveling, but you're supposed to be covering something, you know, can you hang in there? So I've challenged myself to really reserve the schedule as much as possible and catch as much of the general sessions as I can, some of the stuff that's really related to what we're talking about. And I've got some appointments scheduled as well. People are extremely booked up, and it's that's a little bit more difficult. But yes, it's happening. And you know, I know Chris Novak, you heard him speak. He's going to also present some of that same information to the group. So we'll be looking forward to that, catching those, and be happy to share some of that next week. One final thing I wanted to mention too is that I noticed that the Bear Plus program has come out for 2021. Something created a lot of heartburn when it initially came out, and we were told by retailers that Bear kind of came back to retail and tried to figure out how best to work with and put together a program that actually, you know, more fully incorporates the retailers. I'd love to hear any feedback from anyone out there about the program itself. I'm trying to make some phone calls to get some of that feedback as well. But if you have anything to share on your feelings about the Bear Plus program, and if it's fairly incorporating the retailer, I'd love to hear more about that. So, you know, feel free to share that by email, through the comment section on the site, whatever works for you.
Well, speaking of sharing, one final note from me then. I know I've been trying to collect the top 100 forms for our Croplife 100 rankings here for 2020, and as to date, I have about 60 of them in. So the other 40 folks that haven't gotten back to me, and yes, I'm looking your way, Wilbur Ellis, and also your way, Helena Chemical, to name a few that I know that haven't come in yet. You'll be getting a third round of forms from me in the next week. Via email or regular mail if I haven't gotten any email responses from you, just assuming maybe I have the wrong emails and a physical survey might motivate perhaps more. But be on the lookout for that, and please try to get back to me here by the middle of October so I've got time to go through everything. But I'll share a little tidbit, Paul, something I shared with you before we went on camera. Basically, in terms of profitability, it seems like about 80% of the folks who have gotten back to me so far say they were more profitable here in 2020 than they were in 2019. So hopefully that trend will continue as the other forms come in.
Well, there you go. That's good. Well, we don't want to have to start scrolling companies across the screen as you give this speech every week. So, you know, spare us that indignity, and please just send in your form. Because then the next step after that is Eric goes driving around the countryside and just start knocking on doors. You really, really don't want that.
Amen.
All right. Well, that's it for this edition of Croplife Retail Week. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
If you have questions or comments about today's episode of Retail Week, contact us by email or Twitter, or type your message in the comment section below.
Your feedback is important to us. We'll try our best to address your thoughts in next week's episode.
And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.